I'd just like to review with you the two ways of drawing perspective that we'll be working with all term. The first one is one-point perspective, and this drawing is an example of that. It was a small area. The challenge was to fit a breakfast nook into a space that was 12 feet wide and 5 feet deep. And there was also a requirement for extra cabinetry, for more storage. So the two flanking walls, the left and right walls, supply that, and there was just enough room left over for a small table and a banquette. Now, the purpose of drawing it in one-point perspective was such that we could see everything clearly. If we were looking into a corner the way we're going to draw in two-point perspective, much of what we see of the table and the banquette would have been covered by one of either the left or the right wall. So one-point perspective was the right choice for this drawing. We'll take a look at how we would begin this drawing. Our first decision is where to place our horizon line, or the eye level from which you'd like to make this drawing, the one viewpoint. Now, it can only be drawn from a single viewpoint, a third of the way down on our page, to represent a standing height level, like a 5'6" or a 5-foot eye level. And with that horizon line, we also choose a vanishing point, and that, of course, represented where we would be standing outside our drawing to make that room. And here we are, we've even put ourselves in, standing where we would be standing in relation to how we would draw that room. Again, you can only do this drawing from one point of view, otherwise it will look fake and false, and it won't read, it won't look like the way we see the world. Now, from that point, we also had to begin making that room with the distant wall, the more distant wall. So we threw in a box here, perfectly horizontal lines for the ceiling and the floor and the two walls. And from there, we would begin to make the ceiling and the floor by projecting from that vanishing point through each of the four corners of that box, out onto the page and toward where you were standing. And in this diagram, you can see that the dotted lines show projection, and the solid lines show you the actual left wall, ceiling, right wall, and floor lines. And from here, you would begin to build up your drawing. Following a horizontal and vertical line all around, matching up the corners as they met with the corners of our walls. Now this is what the actual outer edge of that room would look like. It would end just that way, with a horizontal and vertical line, just like that. Now in this case, we have ourselves standing there, and we have our vanishing point for our eye level is standing eye level again, and an elevation, what's called an elevation of the chair we wish to draw, an elevation view. And that means there is no perspective involved at all here. We're just looking at proportion and scale, the height of the seat in relation to the back, and the size of the legs and so on. That's a great advantage of one-point perspective. You can get that all in there before you start projecting using the vanishing point. So now we're projecting all of those corners from our elevation out to that vanishing point and eye level, so that we can begin to complete the chair. Now, we wouldn't be able to show how small the distant views, the distant aspects of this chair are without that vanishing point. It holds the secret. In the next diagram, you'll see the next decision that has to be made is how deep should that seat be? How far back should you make it? And sometimes that takes a trial and error approach, but you'll know it when you see it. And when we're freehand drawing this way, you really need to be doing a lot of sketching from life, just little things in front of you, to get a good sense of proportion and scale and how these things really look. That decision on how far back to make that seat decided everything else. It decided the when to make the legs, where to make the legs, and all we had to do was start dropping down those verticals to make all of the 4 legs and to make the thickness of the back as well. The vanishing point holds the key. This is believable in space for that person standing in relation to it. And again, just to make the point that the whole reason for doing that, for drawing in perspective, is so that the distant view replicates the closer view exactly. So you draw the back part the same way you draw the front part, only smaller, and the vanishing point tells you exactly how much smaller to make it, given that point of view and where the person is standing to make the drawing. This next diagram is a 2-point perspective. Now in this case, we're only getting to see 2 walls. Here we're seeing the 2 most important walls in that room. That's why that was chosen. And we're looking right into a corner this time. The wall isn't facing us squarely. And quite often people prefer this view. It seems a little more active, it's a little more dynamic, there are more diagonal lines, which always gives a drawing more drama, but either one, depending on the information you wish to convey, can be chosen. Now to start this sort of drawing, we again place a horizon line, put our 2 vanishing points, we need 2 this time, on either side of our horizon line. Place ourselves outside the drawing. We're staring right into the corner of the room, not looking at anything else but that corner, standing right there. Our projections this time are a little bit different. We're going to use our left vanishing point to make the right wall, and you'll see the blue dotted lines here. I've used the vanishing point on the left to project from the top of the corner. I'm projecting out and I get my right wall. On the left, I use my left vanishing point and I get my right wall. So left vanishing point to get the right wall, right vanishing point to get the left wall. And you can see that it's working. The size of the wall that's closer to the person seems much higher, much larger than the corner, the wall in the corner, the same wall in the corner. Now to draw something inside the room, you use the 2 vanishing points here as well. You make a corner, the corner that's closest to us for that box, and then you begin to project back to the left vanishing point, back to the right vanishing point. To make the top, you project the top corner back to the right vanishing point and then complete it with the left vanishing point. And this, you would keep on doing this until you had completed these boxes for every piece of furniture in the room.